I wonder how many times you can say fuck on YouTube before it's a problem. All right, today I have a face fucking guide for you. You're gonna learn techniques and positions for safely and pleasurably engaging in face fucking and other types of aggressive oral sex. I'm Brandon the Dom. Let's dive in. Oral sex is pretty great. Giving it, receiving it, it's just a grand old time. For those that enjoy rough sex or BDSM power play, traditional oral sex can be turned up a few notches into face fucking. But let's take a moment to make a little distinction between a blowjob, deep throating, face fucking, and throat fucking. While all of these involve oral sex, the difference between them is a matter of who is in control and the depth to which the man is penetrating the woman's mouth. A blowjob is an oral sex act that she does to the man. She's giving pleasure and the man is receiving it. She's mostly in control of the depth and the movement of the actions. You're just along there for the ride. A blowjob can be calm, wet, sloppy, include hand strokes, and may involve a little bit of gagging and teasing. Deep throating is like a blowjob in that it's an oral sex act that she does to him and she's still in control. The difference is she's pushing the cock all the way to the back of her mouth and her throat, trying to take all of it in. Face fucking is now where the control is flipped. It's an aggressive oral sex act that he's doing to her. He's doing it for his pleasure, and she's basically allowing it to happen. That puts him in control of the thrust and depth, and her mouth is being used. Now, face fucking is typically not calm or gentle, and typically doesn't involve any hand action either. Now, the key here to face fucking is that you're only penetrating the mouth, and not pushing towards the back of the throat, because that would be throat fucking, which again is similar because he's in control, and he's the one that is doing all the action. The difference is now he's penetrating fully all the way to the back of the throat and possibly down the throat. Now, why do people enjoy this aggressive oral sex? Like any erotic act, the reasons for it could be a multitude of different reasons. And it's worth you exploring your own erotic mind to see what turns you on about it. But some common reasons include it's an expression of dominance and submission. With face fucking, the power roles are very apparent. The man is very much in the dominant position here with all of the control, basically with the attitude of, I'm going to use your holes with little regard to you. She is then taking the submissive role, and the only purpose in that moment is to be used for his pleasure. Some people also like it because it can be degrading. So depending on the intention behind it and some of the other acts that are included, such as dirty talk, lots of spit, potential for puking, and facials, the submissive might feel used and degraded. Sometimes it can also be painful, which for some people is really a turn on, because if it's done too hard, too fast, it can actually be painful for the submissive, which could be arousing for both the dom and submissive, especially if they're sadists or masochists. And then, of course, anybody that enjoys some rough sex. Sometimes you want slow and seductive, other times you want fast and hard. And this is one of the very myriad of different ways that you can enjoy that. So now let's talk about how to face fuck. Before we just start diving into positions and techniques, let's talk about a few risks. As with most things in BDSM, as you ramp up the intensity, you also ramp up the risk profile. So here's a few things that you should be aware of. I mentioned earlier, and reasons why people might like it is because of pain, but pain can also be one of the risks. So unless your submissive really wants to feel pain, you should try and avoid this, especially if you ever want to continue face fucking her in the future. Always start slow and shallow before you get up to more vigorous thrusting. If you don't allow time for her to relax and get control of her jaw and mouth, you're going to cause a lot of pain. And if there's too much pain and discomfort, you need to take a break before you damage any part of her mouth or jaw. Which brings me to the second risk of possibly dislocating her jaw. Now, you need some serious thrusting and angle to do this, but it's not impossible. What's more likely is you're going to cause soreness to her jaw, especially if she's not used to keeping it open that long and you're sitting there ramming her face. There's also some psychological risk. So depending on how she feels about being used as a submissive, some proper aftercare should be taken to remind her what she actually means to you as a person. So with those things in mind, let's talk about some positions. These are not going to be all the positions that you can do, and I've seen some pretty creative ones, but they're going to be the most common and easily accessible to you. So the first position is him on top. This is basically going to be missionary position, but he's going to be straddled across her chest and his cock is going to be close to her mouth. So basically she will lay on her back and then he'll straddle her chest, placing the knees just basically right underneath the armpits. And to make this more easier on her, she can wrap her arms around his legs and also allow his legs to be on the inside of her rib cage. So that just makes everything nice, strong, and secure. It's also going to give a little bit of a psychological element because she's in a very submissive position, being trapped underneath him. Now, she can prop her head up with a pillow, so there's a little bit of an easier angle, or he can lean over her, basically placing hands on the bed or the wall behind and helping using that to leverage. You can also add a little bit more dominance into this by grabbing the top of the head and using that for more leverage as well. The second position is going to be on her knees, the basic staple position for receiving a blowjob. And here, rather than getting a blowjob where she's in control, the man's going to be taking control and moving her head. So I'll basically have her get on her knees, stand in front of her, and in order to get a good flow of motion, it's good to hold on to her head, possibly doing a little hair pulling as you go. I have a video on hair pulling, so you know the correct ways to pull and hold that hair so it doesn't hurt her and actually feels really good. And if you want to be kind, you can put a soft pillow or a blanket or something very fluffy that she can put her knees on, because she's likely to be rubbing them on the ground if you're thrusting very vigorously. The next position is against the wall. This is similar to her being on her knees where she's in front of you, except now she's either going to be squatting or sitting on something with her back against the wall. This is basically going to sandwich her head between the wall and his pelvis, a rock and a hard place, if you will. Now, what you're going to want to be mindful of is her head hitting against the wall as he's thrusting. So it's a good idea for him to basically stick his hand between her head and the wall and basically use the hand as a cushion, or to get a firm grip on top of the head, pull a little hair if you need, basically to stabilize the head as you're vigorously thrusting. Now, if she's squatting in this position, it's going to be a strained position, which means she's not going to be able to hold it for very long, but it can also add a effect of degradation, punishment, or slave training. The next position that's really good is dangling her head off the bed. So you're basically going to have her lay on her back on the bed, and her head is going to be dangling off the edge of the bed. And the base of the neck should basically be resting on the edge of the mattress. And then he's basically going to stand up next to her so that his cock is level with her mouth. And in this position, he can grab the hips, basically from the top side, and use that to help with leverage. And she can bend her knees so that her feet are against the bed and use that to stabilize herself. This is by far the best position for helping her learn how to deep throat, or if you want to start taking control and get into throat fucking, because the muscles in the throat are far more relaxed and they're basically going to be aligned with the mouth and throat. So it's going straight down rather than when you're fucking from the front, it's basically like trying to go back and down, which doesn't work very well. It's just like how sword swallowers put their mouth straight up to align with their neck so that the sword can go straight down. And because of this, her gag reflex is less likely to be triggered. Now, one of the other reasons that this is one of my favorite positions to do aggressive oral sex in is because now you have access to the rest of her body. You can grab her breasts, play with her nipples, stimulate her clit, or even use a magic wand on her. Next position is 69. So take your classic 69 position and basically turn it up a notch. If she's the one on top, you can basically bend your knees a bit and place your hands on the back of her head to begin thrusting and control the movements more. If he's on top, well, then you just begin thrusting your hips while she's laying on her back, and you also have more access to begin stimulating her. Pretty simple. Now let's talk about a few tips for putting this into practice. As always, my first tip is to remember your goal with this. What intention do you have behind putting aggressive oral sex into your session? Going hard, rough, and degrading can be one vibe, while slow, controlled, and then intense eye contact can be a different vibe. So just try and match your intention with the action that you're doing so that overall it's fun and sexy. My next tip is to start slow. And this is by far the most important principle to aggressive oral sex, because if you go too hard, too fast, and too deep, it's going to hurt her. She needs time to get used to the motions of your cock going in and out of her, especially because she doesn't have control. So actually, start by letting her have control and giving a blowjob. Basically, let her suck, get used to it, let her mouth form around it, and get used to having the cock in her mouth. This allows her to get comfortable, to build trust. And in this moment, while she's getting warmed up, no hands on the back of the head, no hair grabbing yet. She's the one in control. After she has gotten used to sucking the cock, has built that trust, then you can start to take control and begin face fucking. And here you just want to start with the head. in and out real slowly, and let her get used to that depth before you go further. And then you can keep incrementally inserting your cock, basically going more and more in until it reaches the point that she might gag. And you'll want to stop there, give her a moment to recover, and then you can continue, and you've basically found your range from the opening of her mouth to how far back you can go for a face fucking. And within that range, you can basically reinsert your cock and start picking up the pace. Now let's talk about if you want to start going deeper. If you want to go from face fucking to throat fucking, it's only a matter of depth. However, she is going to need some throat training in order for her to gain mastery over her gag reflex. So to practice, see how far you can put your cock in before she really needs to gag. Basically, let her get used to that feeling, figuring out where it is, and then stop and allow her time to recover, go back to something like a hand job, a blow job, or some shallow face fucking. Then you're going to slowly push to that same point. And every time that you do this, she's going to get a little more comfortable with taking more of you into her throat, eventually being able to take it all the way to the back of the throat. And what's important here is that she's willing and ready to actually take your cock that deep. So before you get to more vigorous thrusts, she needs the proper training and warm up. Otherwise, it's really going to hurt her if it's forced and she's not ready for it. The other important thing to keep in mind here is to give her breaks. She should obviously be breathing in and out of her nose as she's getting face fucked. But if you're going deep, it can still make it really difficult for her to breathe. As such, it's vital that you take frequent breaks to let her catch her breath every few seconds. And if either of you are afraid of puking, well, what makes a girl puke during this is continual face fucking that's too deep. Non-stop face fucking can be really uncomfortable, unpleasant, and painful. So give her some breaks. And it's really important that you set up non-verbal safe words. It's going to be really difficult for her to use a verbal safe word if things are getting too intense and her mouth's a little preoccupied. So when she needs a break, have her use her hands to basically push up against your thighs to push you back and tell you to stop face fucking her. Likewise, you could also have her tap your legs 2 times or 3 times to let you know that she's done. Now, as you're starting to master this, you can incorporate other things like bondage. For example, you can restrain her arms behind her back while she's on her knees. You could restrain her hands above her head while you're on top, or you could have her lift her legs up, bring her arms around her legs, restrain her legs, and dangle her head off the bed. And if you really want to take it up a notch, you can make her hold a magic wand against herself while you're face fucking her. And if that sounds really fun, also realize that it's an advanced technique because now you're also removing hands as a safe word. So she doesn't have a very good way to let you know if things are getting too intense. So you need to take more care in giving her breaks and watching her reactions. This also brings me to the tip that you can also focus on her pleasure while you're doing this. So just because you're getting a bunch of pleasure doesn't mean she can't get a little bit too. You can think about inserting a hands-free vibrator or a plug in her while you use her mouth. Additionally, some of the positions I went over earlier give you access to stimulate her as well. And of course, the grand finale. If you take face fucking to its completion, you can easily finish by coming down her throat rather than in her mouth, which is going to bypass her taste buds if she doesn't enjoy the taste. Or you can finish on her face or chest. Just different things that you can do here. Add a little spice to whatever you're doing. Now let's talk about a few tips for the submissive that's going to be the one getting their mouth used. Just because you're not the one in control of the situation does not mean that there's not anything that you can do, which is going to make the experience significantly better for the both of you. The first tip is to use lots of eye contact. Eye contact basically turns up the eroticism of any oral sex act by like tenfold. I also recommend the wetter the better. So use lots and lots of saliva. Basically drool on that cock if you can. Now, if you're throat fucking, saliva might actually not be enough. So you may want to use some sort of edible lube to make sure that everything is well lubricated and you're not getting any tears. My next tip is to use your hand as a block. So if you want to keep the action to just the depth of your face and not going into the throat, you can basically use your hand as a buffer. So while he's fucking your face, basically wrap your hand around the base of his shaft. Your tongue is also a fabulous tool that you can use. If you lift the back of your tongue, it will basically act as a barrier so he doesn't go down your throat. It can also help the guy feel like he's bottoming out a little bit, reaching the back, and will be pleasurable for him. Also, you can open your mouth in a way that saves your jaw. So if you wrap your lips around your teeth like this, and use lots of saliva in your mouth and across your lips. It allows you to have your mouth closed a little more because you won't be scraping your teeth across this cock because your lips are over that, and basically allows you not to have to open as wide. You can also save your jaw a lot by opening more naturally. So like when you're eating, you kind of open all of your jaw rather than just opening from the front here. So you kind of want to open and swing the jaw back. I also recommend practicing getting over your gag reflex. And the best way to do this is for you to be in control. So start with a blowjob and then work to deep throating and get really comfortable with having a cock go that far back in your mouth before you hand over control to him. Because you can go exactly to the depth that you're ready and then go back out and keep doing that over and over again. Now, earlier I brought up puking. For some people, they're like, hell no, I don't want that. For some people, that does sound exciting. If you're one of those people, then what I recommend is also testing this out while you're in control first. So do it while giving a blowjob or deep throating, testing your own boundaries before giving over control to him. So those are my tips for face fucking. It can really be an act of high dominance that polarizes the dominant submissive dynamic, or just enjoyed when you want things to be a little rougher that day. And now that you know how to do it properly, you can add it to your rough sex toolkit alongside things like spanking, choking, manhandling, biting, and hair pulling, which I have videos for, and I'll leave links down below in the descriptions for those. And if you're curious about what other things you might be able to do as a dominant and how they kind of relate to each other, and give yourself a roadmap for ways that you could go from things that are universal or low dominance to higher dominant things like face fucking, I recommend checking out this video. It's going to give you an outline of all of those and ways that you can train up to them. So check out that video, and thank you so much for your time and attention.